Okay. Thank you all for joining us today. Is this okay? Okay. Thank you all for joining us today. It's a very difficult topic, but a very important one. I want to first begin with just a couple of housekeeping items. For anybody that is online, we are watching the chat and have some information and can see your questions. So if you would like to provide some questions, please feel free to do that. Same for those that are in the room. We'd be happy to take questions. There's some time at the end. Please feel free to enjoy your lunch. Restrooms are out through the exit door and to the left if you need them. I want to first start by saying thank you to Adam Hill and Rebby Hill from Maxwell Financial Management for your generosity in sponsoring our lunch today. Maxwell Financial is located here in New Albany and has been a very dedicated partner to the New Albany Food Pantry and to Healthy New Albany. They offer comprehensive financial planning to help you work toward your financial goals. Thank you so much, Adam and Rebby, for your continued support. I also want to mention that lunch today is provided by Freedom a la carte. Through the work that Freedom a la carte does, they bring hope to survivors of sex trafficking and exploitation by giving survivors jobs and a means to live while providing fresh, made from scratch cuisine. They also operate a cafe and bakery and catering. The cafe and bakery is beautiful. It's now open on Spring Street, so we would encourage all of you to visit them online and go down to the Spring Street Cafe. There's information in your lunch and in your packets about Freedom a la carte. It's an amazing organization. Again, thank you for joining us. As I said, it's a very difficult topic today. Even though New Albany has just been named one of the safest cities in the state of Ohio, we must remain vigilant in understanding the threats that exist and guarding our community and children against them. Human trafficking is a tragic reality. Human sex trafficking is the second fastest growing criminal industry in the United States, just behind drug trafficking. Approximately half of these victims are children. Estimates show that 100,000 youth are exploited into the commercial sex industry each year in the United States. And the average age of entry into the sex industry is 14 to 16 years old. In Ohio alone, more than 3,000 minors are at risk for sex trafficking, and more than 1,000 are actually trafficked during the course of a year. In 2012, the Ohio Attorney General's Office published results from its human trafficking prevalence study showing that 1,078 American-born Ohio youth aged 12 to 17 were estimated to have been trafficked for sex over a one-year period. I would also like to recognize two individuals that are here today from the Central Ohio Task Force, the Attorney General's Office. So we appreciate your attendance here very much. The 2012 study was one of the first steps in shifting Ohio's response toward human trafficking. The research demonstrated that trafficking was likely a pervasive problem in the state of Ohio. These study findings resulted in a comprehensive state response. In 2012, Governor John Kasich created the Ohio Human Trafficking Task Force. Since then, the Ohio Governor's Office and numerous local and state child welfare agencies across Ohio have taken an active role in understanding and addressing human trafficking. The U.S. Department of State has defined a 3P framework to prevent trafficking, protect victims, and prosecute offenders. Step one in prevention is increasing public awareness, which is what we're doing here today. Our aim for today is to raise awareness, provide a forum to discuss this important topic with two very special guests, share our resources and local community connections, and consider tangible ways that we can make change. I would like to introduce our very special guest today. First, New Albany Police Chief of Police Greg Jones. Chief Jones began working in New Albany as a patrol officer in 1989. At that time, New Albany encompassed 1 square mile. The population was 919 residents, and there was no business park. Today, as police chief, Chief Jones oversees a combined staff of more than 30 police, dispatch, and support staff, serving a New Albany daytime population approaching 25,000, with 16,000 employees in the New Albany International Business Park. The New Albany Police Department also pays 100% of the cost of staffing a school resource officer and DARE officer on the New Albany Plain Local School District's campus, to serve a student and staff population of nearly 6,000. Under Greg's leadership, the New Albany Police Department earned accreditation in 2019 from the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, certifying this institution of best practices locally to meet a national standard of excellence. Obtaining accreditation was a 3-year process, signifying that the department meets more than 180 different policing standards. Thank you, Chief, for being here and for the great work you do in our community.
Thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.
Stephanie Rollins is the Education Prevention Specialist at Gracehaven and a Certified Peer Support Specialist, mentoring survivors on their road to recovery. Gracehaven was founded to strategically help the growing number of victims of domestic minor sex trafficking. Gracehaven employs a comprehensive approach to combating domestic minor sex trafficking through community collaboration, prevention, education and awareness, intervention training, and survivor care and support. Gracehaven is a verified member of the National Trafficking Shelter Alliance, a community of service providers for survivors of human trafficking. Stephanie is a 21-year survivor of human trafficking, a tremendous community leader and passionate advocate for victims of human trafficking. She has quite literally dedicated her life to raising awareness and educating parents, individuals, schools, and communities about the danger of human trafficking. Stephanie embodies what it means to go from survivor to thriver. We're so blessed to have you here today, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. We have a lot to cover, and it's difficult to know where to begin. Stephanie, your focus and life's work is now about education, learning, and sharing what you know. Can you share with us about the work you do at Gracehaven and the story of what led you to this work?
First of all, I want to say I'm honored to be here today. And it's an honor to sit here with you today. I'm so grateful to be able to have this position to spread this awareness. Being a survivor myself, and I'm a Catch Court graduate and Freedom a la carte graduate too. Good food. So I was taught about food was love, but I've worked around other survivors just like me getting our life back. And I just got on the path of a very, very dear friend of mine. I just followed her lead of her compassion and love of working with other survivors. And we laughed, we cried, we shared a lot of moments as we grew into strong, independent women. And so I got this passion of, if I could do it, so can they, or anybody else in that realm. So I just started really, really having the passion. And when Gracehaven hired me, I was like, wow, this is not odd. This is God to place me right in the path of teenage survivors of human trafficking, because I was trafficked at 12. And so it just grabbed a hold of me. And as I was doing prevention education and through the schools, doing the groups with the girls at the Gracehaven house, I felt like I became a bridge, because a lot of kids started identifying more than ever before. And I was just like, wow, you're not alone. And so, that's the hardest part, is we can't change what we can't identify, or what we hold in as a secret because we're the shame and the guilt. So when we turn around and I tell about my story and I share my deepest darkness to, I just get these feelings of the kids and organizations and adults, because it's not worst case scenario. This brokenness is throughout all of women, throughout all of our traumas, or anybody that has experienced some type of trauma can relate to what it feels like to be a little wounded. And so when we talk about it and I share, I become this bridge, and it's been absolutely amazing journey. We share, we cry, we hug. Being trauma informed has taught me so much, not only about me and my trauma, but how to be able to approach others with the same type of trauma. And so the education awareness has become a very, like, I'm a foot soldier, and that's our armor. We need to get out here, we need to teach, we need to know what it looks like, and have our kids pay attention, even our college kids, even all the way to the K-5, or our brownies, our Girl Scouts, because it comes in all different types and forms. And usually it is the ones that's closest to us that we need to really be able to be aware and know that we have a voice and that we can stand up and say no, or have an exit stage when you feel something in your stomach that isn't right. So we, as women, have to not question what we feel on the inside, because that's usually when something isn't right. We don't need to actually investigate. We just need to be able to be ready and know that if it don't feel right, we just get out of Dodge. But
Trust your gut.
absolutely, instincts are the blessings that I wasn't. Unfortunately, I was hard-headed, and I figured I had to find out. And well, the School of Hard Knocks, by the grace of God, am I alive to be able to talk about it? But I guess I had to in order to be able to teach it. So I'm very grateful.
As I was preparing for this, honestly, I really wanted to learn a lot and just educate myself to have this conversation. I was reading the Ohio Human Trafficking Task Force report in 2019, and there was a quote in there that kind of struck me. It said, and this was one of the anti-trafficking coordinators that was part of the research, and she said, in 2019, we still have some people who do not believe this crime exists in their suburban communities. How many cases are there really? Does this really happen in my area? This only highlights the importance of the data, which demonstrates the reality of human trafficking and assists with understanding the scope of the problem and where to target resources. Can we talk for a little bit about how does this happen? What is grooming, coercion, and fly fishing look like?
So the fly fishing piece is social media. And I like to say that that's the new form babysitter. Being that I have ADHD and I have a granddaughter that has one, so I know what it's like to be able to hand her electronic device and be able to have some type of peace for 2 hours. So let's be real. The part about the fly fishing thing is that once Backpage was disintegrated, I believe it was shut down and fell into a million different types of apps, to where one minute we know what was going on and who was doing it, and now they took on another face. They're taking different other identities. With the boys, I have a 12-year-old grandson. Well, he will be 12, and I know what he's going through as far as being hacked, as far as how they'll act as if they're the same age. Boys are very competitive. They don't know to stop and check if the app is really real. And so they get enticed by really cool different, swords or things in Roblox. And so they twist and they share and they fall right into it. I don't know how many times I've had to, take the device away, and I had to force him into listening to me, and he says, I'm just paranoid, and I said, no, I'm not, you got hacked. So how did you do that if that was your friend? So it's sitting down and knowing what your kids are doing. I love that bark. And there's another one, I think it's called True, something with Corby on YouTube. He has another device. I can't think of it right now because my nerves is over me, but it shares a device where the parents can know exactly what the kids are doing, because it is now with COVID, they have so much time. They have so much time, and that is not good, because that's where the human trafficker can go in and they can isolate the kids, make them feel like they're doing something wrong. Because, you know, and what's done in the darkness, I know it always comes into light, but there's a lot that a kid will do and not really realize how they got manipulated right into doing it. And now it's like, if you don't do what I say, I know where you live. I'm going to tell your parents. So now they're like, oh God, I don't want to get in trouble. So it just sucks them right in. There was another good one on YouTube where there was a 37-year-old mother that was dressed down as an 11-year-old. Now it shows how the technology can take all of the wrinkles, all the cellulite, and they can turn into a young kid, you know, and there's so much that can be done that is deceiving, and that can, you know, have your kids or you, because I've even, you know, read about the blogs of a guy he never thought in a million years that he would be informed in a traffic, and he had a 2-year relationship over on the internet, and never imagined that he was going to get shipped over somewhere when he got together with the girl, but he went with his instincts and took off. And later on in the news, he found out that that was a sting and she was in the middle of it. And he was like, wow, it was that close. So adults can just be just as much a victim and suspect. And so as a community, the more we learn and the more educated that we get, the more armor that we can set up and suit up for our children.
You said when we were kind of chatting earlier that tech is kind of the new age boogeyman.
Oh man, I'm telling you. So it doesn't actually, being groomed is not actually like the boogeyman. It's not the streaker. It's not the real bad guy. It can be the boy right next door. It can be the girl right next door. I was trafficked 4 different ways: by the drug trafficker, the girlfriend, the boyfriend, you know, and then just being in that world to where I kept falling into the same patterns, the same groups that was so toxic. But again, if that's what you're around and you seem to adapt to the wrong way of life, and then you can't change what you don't identify. So it took me a really long time to figure out that it was not my fault, and that I was manipulated because I was 12 into thinking that it was a relationship and that I did something wrong and that I wanted somebody to love me so bad because my father was killed when I was 7. So I had daddy issues, you know. Alcoholism ran in my family. I was high risk. That's why I love going to the Huckleberry House. I love going to the Star House, because you know what? I'm sitting there with kids that was just like me, and I can identify with them. So I say, wow, what could I did any different? So I want to become the voice for the voiceless. I want to become somebody that's going to educate to the high risk that can become a victim. And so, yeah, there's so many different high risks. There's so many different levels that we in society right now, with the opioid epidemic, with the fentanyl, you know, the families are getting addicted. The kids are becoming prey. They run away. But guess what? We're used to being around people like that. So we run. right into the people that we were surrounded, even through the family. So we run right back into the dungeon. And so I think everybody needs to be aware. Everybody needs to be cautious. I'm telling you, this is not just in the hood. This is in your back door. Matter of fact, human traffickers are upgrading. They're not even in the hotels really that much anymore. I'm not saying that they're not, but they're over here renting the Airbnbs. You know, they're up into the rural areas. They're up into the great big, nice, big houses with 6 cars. So you have to be aware, and you have to pay attention to what's on your block. You got to be aware what's 2 blocks over where there's no adult supervision and all the kids are going over there. There's so many different levels. And so you've got to be educated to know and how to direct and what you're looking for.
The University of Toledo did a really interesting study on social media and sex trafficking process from connection and recruitment to sales. And they noted that 42% of trafficked victims met their trafficker online, and the ages were from 10 to 16. So like you had mentioned, there's some instances where kids make themselves vulnerable online. What is it that they're doing that allow these people to groom them or reach them?
First of all, you know, the families, we can't shove it underneath the rug anymore. A lot of times we become high risk because things happened to us when we was younger through the family. And so when myself, let me just say, my father was killed when I was 7. I was sexually assaulted by my babysitter at 9. I become an habitual compulsive runaway at 11. I have an alcoholic background, and I do with my family, and I have the allergy. So I fell very, very high risk and prey because I wanted to find that daddy love so bad. And I blamed the one closest to us. So hurt people hurt people. I know that today it was not my mother's fault. She handed down to me what was handed to her. So it was toxic to begin with. A lot of people doesn't understand sometimes if you don't get the right type of counseling and the right type of help throughout domestic violence, which I'm a survivor of. And I watched my mom, you know, through different stepdads, and it was just, I ran away from that just to run away right into domestic violence, men that abuse their women. And I starved for that love. And I thought it was a love because my mother stayed. And so I just want everybody to know that once I hit puberty, a lot of things happened to me that I didn't understand. And that if I would have had the proper counseling and I would have known that it was toxic and I didn't realize what the difference between healthy and what unhealthy was. So I created a web that I stayed stuck in for almost 3 decades. It wasn't 21, it's 30. I'd like to stop at 21, but unfortunately it wasn't. And so it was a repeat lost thing. So what I'm saying is that when you're a teenager and there's fighting and things going on with the family, we isolate. We want to go into the other room, and what better way to be able to create a fantasy on Messenger, especially if somebody's really good looking. Oh my goodness. I was like, oh wow, he's checking me out. Oh, okay. He's going to take me away from everything that's going on. Now, let me tell you, you don't have to be in a bad family and all messed up and toxic for our genetics to go into Messenger and say, oh, wow, he's hot. He's looking at me. We have self-esteem issues, you know, and a lot of times, even the richest family in the world that can give you everything, we still lack things as females, as boys. We want to belong, and we fall into right into the predator's hands because we want to be noticed. We want 1 million likes. And I try to teach them, it's like, no, 1 million likes is not popular. It just makes you vulnerable. It puts you out there for somebody to see that you want to be seen, you want to be recognized. And the predators know exactly what you need to hear to make you believe that you are number one and on top of everything. And so they just slowly suck you in. And then they manipulate, and the coercion piece of the people that love you become now the enemy. So now when mom comes in and opens up the door, instantly we throw the phone underneath the pillow and we're doing homework. No, he wasn't. We would spent 3 hours just now on a conversation of somebody we didn't know, and that was not even real. And so, yes, even with the boys, I want to say they're very competitive. I mean, we've got the Robux, we've got Minecraft, we've got Fortnite, we've got all of these different types of games that predators can steal their identities from a young guy or a young boy, and they can go into the inbox and they get really, really good. And the boys just, all they want to do is beat this guy. But he's cool because he's got all the different little gadgets that they're all trying to win. And now they start trusting him back and forth. And so then eventually, I mean, this could be a 6-month process. This could be a year process. I don't know how many boys have said that, yeah, they pop up on our stuff and they wasn't who they said they was, or they would, get them into another ROM outside of Robux or Fortnite, and then want to start exchanging dirty porn pics and stuff like that, and they had to shut it down. So I know for a fact that that's going on. So what are we to do? What are we to look for? How do we be able to be the defense of our kids being manipulated into believing something that's not real if we're not on that site and know what they're doing?
I just did the other day, actually, my boys were playing something and he said, man, this guy just gifted me like 500 items. And I was like, only because I talked to you. Trucking in there, I pulled those headphones off his head so fast, I put them on and I'm listening. Now it was a little kid and he didn't gift it to him, but I was like, oh my God, this could be happening right here.
Yeah.
I mean, it freaked me out. So thank you for.
What about the voice box? That voice change.
Yes,
they've got that voice change where, you can have a grown man speaking just like a young kid.
Well, that's true. So it could have
So you never know. You have to really know what you're doing on. This is a luxury. This is not something that you need to have, but the kids are like, oh, but they're having a meltdown if they don't have society, if they don't have their social internet, because this is all they have now in COVID. This is all they have. And they do not know how to really, now since they have all the social media and they do interaction on the text, it cheats them from actually having that social face-to-face conversation that they're going to need on them interviews later on down the line. They're going to need that in their college campus, marketing, or whatever they want to go into to be able to communicate. It is cheating our kids. The millennium today is so secretive and so manipulative, and it's so easy for them to be coerced into another fairyland that's not real. And so, yes, they got to, if they're going to do it, we need to teach them. We got to know what could be happening and all the red flags and everything, and to let them know that you're not in trouble. You are not in trouble. You're human, and that it's okay to come. Have a safe person that you can always go to and tell anything, so they do not get them to isolate.
Thank you for all that information. I want to come back to tech in a little bit because we have a lot to talk about, and there's some listing of some sites that we want to make everyone aware of. Chief Jones, if I could ask you, you and the New Albany Police Department partnered with the Central Ohio Human Trafficking Task Force on an operation at a New Albany hotel on Route 62. Can you share some information about that?
Yeah, this was in February, and it actually started a long time ago. Officers were noticing some unusual activity, and where two people would drive up, a man and a woman. We wouldn't go inside the hotel. The male would stay in the vehicle or be in the lobby, and then sometime later, the female would come back out again, and then they would leave. And it's certainly not indicative of what you'd expect at a hotel. But at that time, we were a little bit at a loss on how to deal with this. As you read and as you know, that human trafficking happens in broad daylight and people don't even realize it. It's an ever-changing type of activity, and it's really hard to detect. Well, we felt that we were detecting it, but we didn't know really what we could do with it. And fortunately, reaching out for resources, we hooked up with the Central Human Trafficking Task Force. It really provided us a roadmap, and with their assistance, we were able to come up with a plan to address this. And so what happened in February is that we partnered with the Human Trafficking Task Force. We're talking the staff that was there that day is around 20 people. It's the Hope Task Force, it's BCI, Homeland Security, Dublin PD, Columbus Police Department. I'm missing some, so there was a lot more. And there were Salvation Army. There were law enforcement was there, analysts were there, and resources for the victims that would show up that day. And so what happened is that they started answering the ads that were out there. And a lot of times, if you back page, you think, well, those are where the ads are. It's some type of dark underworld that these ads are going through. Well, no, these were mainline social media ads that you could answer. And so we weren't sure if we were going to end up with zero or if we were going to end up with quite a few. So what happens is we'd answer the ad. They would come out to the hotel thinking that they were going to meet a customer, a job, and instead they met Human Trafficking Task Force, and they were, I know that when it came out and talks about it, they were arrested. Well, it kind of gives a very confrontational or negative connotation to it, but really it wasn't. The arrest is because they need to be detained instead of turning around and walking out the door. And through the arrest, they were put in touch with people that can provide stable housing and provide whether it be rehab services, really the resources they need, other than just somebody telling them that you're doing something wrong. And I'm sorry.
Sorry, we're going to take a pause for technical repair.
You could try and just speak loudly while I try and connect it.
Well, like I said, nobody's ever accused me of talking softly. I didn't even know it was off. I don't know if you guys heard the whole thing or not. But anyway, there were 8 women total that were arrested. They were all offered services. Many of them talked to the people and the resources that were there. Ultimately, they were issued summons and recommended to go to catch court. And catch court, Franklin County, it takes a lot less adversarial type of approach to the court system that you might normally believe in. And so it's really, from the first step to the last, it's really a lot different than the way that we used to deal with issues like this when I was a newer officer. It was strictly a criminal type of activity, and there wasn't much thought, not much of a look below the surface. And so through catch court, their housing, it might be mental health services, it might be drug rehab services. It might, a lot of the victims, as you mentioned, they don't have a lot of strong family relationships, and those are one of the things that make them vulnerable to being trafficked to begin with. And so there was 8 women that were arrested and ultimately summoned. 3 of them arrived with male escorts, and one of them, when stopped, said, "Oh, look, I'm not I'm not human trafficking. I'm not involved in prostitution. I sell drugs. She sells herself. It's just a mutual relationship, and it kind of highlighted how difficult this is. One, to get the victims help, and then two, also to prosecute the ones that are involved. And we did that operation in February. There's been operations in Dublin and Columbus, Gahanna. There's other suburbs that are coming on board. And you mentioned it's not just the hotels. That's absolutely right. If you answer these ads, we see it at homes. People, it's showing up in people's homes. It could be an apartment, condo, and it happens, right out in front of everybody. And it's really hard to detect, and also hard to intervene.
And you spoke previously when we talked about the critical incident team. Can you talk about the CIT training and what that is?
Well, one of the things, so I was talking about the history, my history of law enforcement. Law enforcement today is so much better prepared to handle these type of victims, these type of situations and activity. All of our officers are CIT trainers, critical incident team training. It's not directly related to human trafficking, but it's about dealing with people who are in crisis. And a lot of it's not just how the officer does that, but also the resources that are available to the officer to get them help. And the task force is that times 100. Whether it be the statewide or the Central Ohio or Cuyahoga County, they really do a nice job of making sure from our first contact, in this case, one of our hotels, all the way through the court system, and making sure that the services are there, the resources there to help them escape this life.
Have you had some interaction with those individuals and those teams, Stephanie?
Oh my goodness. Let me tell you what. I'm alive because of, you know what I mean? And I mean, I'm a catch court graduate, and let me tell you, Judge Herbert looked at me and he said, I was 100 pounds. I was kind of like looking like Beetlejuice, and, rough, beat down, broken, you know what I mean? And he looked at me and said, I see something in you that you don't see in yourself. And they created an area of, it wasn't just court. It was all of us girls that were broken, and we was healing together. They matched us with mentors. They showed me how to become a lady instead of a hood rat. Because, being out on the streets doesn't, you got survival skills and, but the Amethyst Women's Program, they broke it down in so many different forms of, how the trauma started, outlining the family, how it just all lined up, and then freedom a la carte. And then, I'm working with all of the Attorney General, I'm looking at Salvation Army, I'm Gracehaven. I'm telling you, I've got my hand in pretty much a little bit of everything. And because I will be their biggest cheerleader for the rest of my life, because it was every bit of every one of them organizations that built me from ground up. And being an independent, strong woman on a mission, I can only give thanks to everyone that played a part in my life. And that was every organization. And that's what it takes. The task force, Attorney General, Gracehaven, Salvation Army, Catch Court. She has a name, John School. It takes every one of us to play this big part of being able to save lives, because we're all wounded and injured in some way or another. And a lot of us did not have that luxury of getting the help that we needed when things happened to us when we was young.
So if I understand right, then really in years past, you would come on site or scene and these victims would be arrested and the law would just take them. And now you have these, like the state of Ohio task force and these different groups, and they are there tangibly, in some cases, 20-some people at a scene, and they're matching these victims up with resources. I mean, is that the understanding? That
Exactly. And
that's basic.
you know, not when you take a group of 8, not everybody's going to be as receptive as some, but this is, you know, it's a lifeline. You know, if operations like that, and people like you and all the resources, Southeastern Health, and that aren't there to make sure that there is we put our best foot forward in trying to offer a way out. You know, how long are they going to go beyond that without another opportunity to get out that lifestyle? And you know, this was our first operation. We weren't sure how successful or unsuccessful it would be. You know, and I was you obviously have mixed feelings when the whole day was, you know, full of coming in contact with these victims. It's good that it worked and that we were able to offer the resources and put them, recommend them for catch court and everything that's provided. But it's also sad that we were successful in finding that many people. And it's not just, you know, we talk about it happens everywhere. You know, this you know, Dublin was involved, and they've done similar operations, and Gehenna, and it happens all over the place. So I think there is a lot of, and myself included, you know, when you work in a nice area, you tend to think that maybe there are crimes that just don't happen here or that you're insulated from. And really with social media and you know, those geographical boundaries and walls have all come down. And so it's, you know, we're going to continue our effort. I'm telling you, the Central Ohio Human Trafficking Task Force is amazing. Everybody involved is amazing, and it's you know, it really puts together a program with the court and law enforcement and Salvation Army, the resource that we talked about. We could not have done that on our own.
Would you say the last 10 or so years, or when did you really start to see this kind of change?
Well, you know, back my earliest experiences were usually when New Albany was more rural and things didn't go well. You know, when I worked third shift or mid-watch, at 3 o'clock in the morning, you see a woman who's not, you know, dressed for walking out on a rural road, or you'd see them walking down the side of the road, and you come in contact with them, and they weren't completely forthcoming, obviously, but basically they had met with a John, and it went south for some reason. They were dumped out there, and that was our first experience. And really, my, you know, the attitude or the approach that I took, and I think law enforcement in general took, is this is a criminal issue. It's not really, you're not dealing with a victim. And so I think that through education like you're providing and all the resources, it's really changed in law enforcement from identifying everyone as a criminal versus people being victims. And this is one of the few criminal activities that we deal with where we have, it's the only one that I've been involved with that have that many resources right there at the time of the arrest. All the other crimes that we deal with, we may have one, you know, could be net care or some task force like that, but to have this many resources right from the beginning is amazing.
Some of the statistics I read that in 2000, and just to your point about us being involved and how to provide these resources and reporting and how important the community is. In 2016 and 17, Ohioans reported the 4th highest number of human trafficking cases to the national hotline, after highly populated states, California, Texas, and Florida. Now, this ranking does not imply that Ohio has the 4th highest rate of human trafficking, but as that only takes into consideration those cases reported to the hotline and not those that go unreported. It does, however, indicate that Ohioans are reporting instances of human trafficking more frequently when compared to other states. So the report that this summarized showed that the National Human Trafficking Hotline from Ohio led to the identification of 509 victims, 228 traffickers, and 73 trafficking businesses. So that national hotline is something we should talk about.
Yeah, and it was important to point out it doesn't mean Ohio State's is or is not a particular hotspot, because a lot of times as we mentioned, human trafficking is undetected. So the scope, whether it be in Ohio or Indiana, another thing, is somewhat unknown. So I think that, overall, the Central Iowa Task Force and also the state task force, education is key. And so whether it be healthcare workers or children's services or juvenile detention facilities, screening people that come to them, looking for scratching below the surface and looking for victims of human trafficking, the education that's going out to the public, and then the publicity that human trafficking, when there's sting operations, it really helps build awareness, and it really is a testament to our community and the state that people are on the lookout and that they are calling the tip line so often.
So the human trafficking is second behind drug trafficking. And so if you look at the highway systems of Ohio, you can tell, like, we are a hub. You can get anywhere out of Ohio in 2 hours, And so, and then you got the metropolitan cities, that's going all the way around. And, it's like one-stop shops. Not only are the drug traffickers doing them routes, but now the human traffickers are doing the same routes, but not selling drugs. It's human life.
Yeah, I learned that from studying a little bit up on Gracehaven, that Ohio is a prime field for exploitation because of the extensive highway system, the large number of truck stops and adult strip clubs, close proximity to an international border, and a high number of children living in poverty. So it's, like you said, it's in our backyard.
The truckers against human trafficking, stormy nights, they're the bomb, because even on the truck stops, we're called lot lizards. And it's really, really crazy because back when I was out there, I probably traveled the world but didn't even see it. But now it's really cool that stormy desert storm, the truckers against human trafficking, they're actually witnessing the trucks that are picking up the girls, getting on a special code, identifying their license plates, and when they go through the weigh station, they're waiting to get the girls before they go over state lines. And so, and they're really making mass progress. So that's another organization that is like killing it. So I'm just so excited because these are lives. These are lives being saved. These are moms, these are aunts, these are mothers, sisters, brothers. These are human lives that probably been through a lot. And again, it starts when we're young, things happen. We don't just wake up one day and say, when I grow up, I want to become a prostitute. Things happen. And it goes into steps of not only the allergy, but the behaviors, the lifestyle, and what we see growing up. And so until we get around the right type of, the law-abiding citizens, which I am now, thank you, Jesus. But it was just like day and night. Like what I thought was okay and was normal is horrific. But that's the trauma that I've endured. And that's where, when my survivor mode goes on, we don't get to see the difference until we do the work, until we get the help, until, if I would have took the classes through Amethyst and got to really embrace this journey of my darkness, turning it into a light to help somebody else, and being able to see the other side, even with the task force, because that was a cool ride, because I speak at John's school too. And at first it was really cool because I was giving them the business, but then I found out that hurt people. And a lot of times, if they would have got the right type of counseling or whatever resources that they needed when they was younger, maybe things wouldn't have played out, but I'm not giving it a pass. because without the demand, you know what I mean? We still have the crime. And I'm not going to say that's okay, because I'm going to tell you, they need to be exposed just like we were unbusted, because it's a cat and mouse game. And so while they are getting by with it, they release an endorphin just like a junkie would on a shot. And so, yes, they need help too.
What work are you doing with the Attorney General Subcommittee?
I'm having a blast. I love Ruth Downing. And so, you know, I've always wanted to, like, you know, I don't know, maybe I've thought about maybe being a nurse. I was always a caretaker and a people pleaser. So, but I found that I am more useful in the health field, in the forensic things, because it was really, really cool. And because of my lifestyle that I endured with, you know, pregnant women and other addicts and things that's happened through my journey of where doctors and nurses and where we have felt so out of place and things has happened, there were people wasn't trauma informed. I even spoke at an ONA a couple years back, and there was a trauma guy up there, and he did his full presentation, and he asked over 100 people how many people were trauma informed. And I'm talking doctors, lawyers, nurses, and only 3 people raised their hand. And I was like, wow. So when I had this opportunity to work with Ruth, and we come up with scenarios, and we're going to come up with all kinds of like little cool skits and stuff to be able to teach the paramedics, because, you know, I was with a pregnant woman going into the ER throughout the whole thing, and I was really excited. She's having this baby, and the doctors and the nurses shamed her so bad because the baby was addicted to crack, and he was shaking, and I was just like, but that's a life. And it's got 10 fingers, 10 toes, and she was beautiful. But I wanted to crawl underneath her bed because I couldn't imagine how she felt, the way the doctors treated her. And so I'm like, okay, now I'm in the position to play on the other side. And let's bring out that awareness. Let's get and make sure that everybody's trauma informed in the healthcare field. And even, you know, on the floor, I had the, you know, the luxury of being able to be in the police academy, which, you know, I never thought in a million years I would have been there. But it was really, really cool, right? I got to teach them a little something, because one officer called me wasted space, and I said, well, I'm utilizing it now, you know, and it was really cool. But I got to be able to say that, no, they saved my life that day, because I was in a hotel room with a serial rapist and I did not know it. And so they needed to know that, that what they're doing is so important, that when we're on drugs, we're fighting against ourselves. We're like, we can only think of that next one. And the predators behind it are the ones that are feeding it to us, and that they already know that once we're physically addicted, it's hand and money over and over and over and over. And they can set us up into the coercion piece, the manipulation piece, to giving us what we need without paying for it. And then when we go back to pay for it, we owe 1,000 times over, and that we could never pay a debt. Now they own us. No, I'm telling you, there's a story behind everything. And so, yeah, it's a blast. I'm really enjoying it. And I love being able to say that I did the work and I can hold my head up high, and that I'm a part of the solution now and not a part of the problem.
Yes, you are, for sure.
Yeah.
There's a very, you're doing amazing work, and you are changing and saving lives, the work that you're doing. There's a very moving letter on the Gracehaven webpage that's written by Dr. Jeff Barrows, the founder of Gracehaven. And he talks about this, about being a physician and people not being trauma informed. He says that recent research has confirmed that almost 88% of victims of domestic minor sex trafficking, so these are kids, encounter healthcare professionals while being trafficked, yet very few are identified and assisted. He said, these victims are rarely identified within the healthcare settings because fewer than 3% of healthcare professionals have been trained on human trafficking. Thus, there's a desperate need to train healthcare professionals. And as a physician, I have begun to travel across the country to meet this need. So this is happening, and there will potentially be interventions at that opportunity as opposed to not realizing or recognizing. So it's such beautiful work. Chief Jones, could you tell us a little bit about ICAC, the Internet Crimes Against Children?
So we're a member of the ICAC task force, and you know, when this is a lot like what I mentioned about when we did the Operation February. I thought, you know, how many people are we really going to have come out? And I was surprised and disappointed on how many we were able to attract. And then, you know, the ICAC task force is the same way. When we start talking about getting involved in it, you know, you kind of wonder, are we going to be an agency that's going to need to be involved in that task force? And so we put ourselves out there as a profile, and again, it was surprising and disappointing on how quickly we're in the heat of it, where people are communicating with us and wanting to meet. You know, one of the more recent arrests, we went down to the Portsmouth area and arrested. Well, no, we arrested him here, but then we ended up going down there to perform some other activities. But you know, we had a guy that had been talking to us for some time, and then there was a gap where he wasn't talking to us, and then he kind of came back online, and it was because he was going to be working in the New Albany area. And so we arranged to meet, and you know, if you would meet this guy, you know, this guy's I don't know, 60s, pictures of his grandkids in his wallet. You know, you wouldn't. This isn't somebody you would normally. Everybody thinks that you're going to be able to recognize these people, and it's not the case. And you know, they're really basically our time is the limitation on how often we can apprehend these people. And so it's you know, it's a very similar type of operation, and the activity of these predators is very similar. And it just kind of drives home when you see it that there's really, you know, we talked about Albany being the safest community, but really, it's a lot of that stuff is here, but it just goes undetected. And the fact that the work of the ICAC task force and the human trafficking task force, you know, otherwise, all this would happen under the surface and nobody would even know.
Or something would happen to one of our kids, and then we go, oh my gosh, what do we do now? So prevention is our job.
Yeah, and a lot of the, you know, the people we're apprehending with the ICAC task force, they don't have a criminal record. They don't have traffic tickets. I mean, they, you know, otherwise, other than what they're involved in, you would think they're just a law-abiding citizen. And so, you know, it's if you, it is a different world that our kids are growing up in, and the reach that these predators have into the lives of people that are having difficulty, whether it be with their family or drugs or mental health, they're really able to reach people that are vulnerable to this in a way that they haven't been able to do in the past.
Did you want to say something on that?
Well, I mean, you know, if you look at it, you know, we're in recession. Families are losing their jobs, you know, so there's a lot of chaos going on, and the kids, you know, they want to keep up with the times. They're watching Big Sister, you know, come back home with McDonald's. They're watching it, you know, come back with Hollisters and nice phones, you know. And the sad part about it is that when we're watching them, we're like, well, we want to eat too, you know, and so we let them in the parents' house, let them take a shower, and next thing you know, we're going to go, she sets us up. She sets us up to go get us some McDonald's and bring back the money while she's taking a break, you know, your own sister. You know, it's very common now. I mean, and these people, these Johns, I mean, they're not the boogeymans. These are doctors, these are lawyers, these are big, high architectural, you know, big oil rig, you know, I'm telling truckers, you know, these are our average every single day people that we actually communicate with and probably socialize with in the community, right underneath us. This is their dark secret. This is what they do underneath. And it is a darkness, okay, when you sit there and look at it. But I just want you to know that, you know, not everybody is this horrible person. And that's what, you know, I was in it for so long, because a lot of these men were good guys and they were just lonely, or they were widowed and they just wanted to pay for some type of companionship. And so we played on that. My addiction played on that. And what I need them to know is that it falls into another form of addiction, because it's still against the law. Hello. And it gets worse, just like an addiction. Like, I just started out with just a little bit of weed and maybe some drinking and having a good time, to where it turned into a job, 365, 24/7, to where I couldn't go without it. And so they think that they're maintaining their job life and family over here, but can play over here. But then they don't realize what we're going through because of the rapes and the HIV and all the diseases that we're contracting, and the hospitals we won't go in because we're being judged, or the addiction won't allow us to sit there for 45 minutes or an hour, however it takes to get into an ER room. And so there's so many different things, and they're taking it right back to their families. You know, it's not okay. Everybody is at risk. And we, out here on the street, when I say we, I say it's me, because I'm an open book. Thank God that I had the help and the resources that made me back to the woman that I am. And I can show other women that we can become warriors too, and that we can get our lives back. But not everybody's got that. Everybody needs to know that the further deeper that we go in and we make these Johns believe all these lies, when they give us that $20 and we go hit that drug trap house and we do that $20 shot and we die right there in that floor, we don't come back out. That's what it is today. And that's what I tell these kids. We don't get high. It's not a recreational drug anymore. We don't get high, we die. And so what about that? Who's going to get the charge for that on that $20 bill? So, sorry.
I guess if you could just summarize and say to all of us as parents and community members, you know, it's spinning in our brain. You know, our kids are vulnerable wherever we live, and whoever lives in this community with us. What's the single most important thing we need to know and be aware of, and what do we do about it?
Well, the booty shorts can go out the door. I love it, that one where the man put on booty shorts. And he was like, come on, let's go to the store. And she was like, oh, no. That was wonderful. That is a good way to stop the kids from like, if you don't like what you see there, guess what we're seeing? You know, more is better. Leave a little bit to, you know, have a little vision. You know what I mean? Because when I tell the girls, it's like, I'm not going anywhere with you. Because see, I'm a survivor too. And if you're going to attract that type of people, then you put my life in jeopardy. You got to tell the kids, you know, you've got this good looking guy in the Timbs and the hat and the gold and suited up, got the nice car and the 22s and the boom booms, a handful of money and no job. You have to turn, you know, your life is worth holding out. Not to fit in. You weren't made to fit in. And you know, yes, weed is legal and it's getting more legal, but they're lacing it with fentanyl. So it's like the curiosity killed the cat, literally. You can try something, but if you don't know what you're trying, it could set you up to die. And we need you. We need our millenniums. We need them. And in college, you know, we're going to hazing and we're doing a lot of drinking and we're finding ourselves out here in the college realm. But what they don't see is the predators are behind the drinks and they're roofing them. And when you wake up and you know, there's nothing, you don't know where you're at, and you know, you don't know what happened, but somebody videoed exactly what happened. That can ruin somebody's life. So you got to pay attention and never put your drinks down, number one. Hello, girls. When you go, leave in groups. Leave no one behind. Make sure everybody's together, because that's what traffickers do. They lure somebody, the most vulnerable, out the door, and everybody else is like, well, we seen her earlier. We don't know where she went. You got to pay attention. You got to get your face out of the phone. You know, I loved it. I went to a community, and one of the dads was the patrol of campus. And he kept telling his daughter, and he was like, man, you got to get your face out of that phone. Eventually, one day, he popped out of a bush and got her. Oh, she was so mad. But thank God it was him. You know, taught him very valuable lessons. And cut back phone time and electronic time. You know, monitor what these kids are doing. Because once you learn what the education piece is, then you can actually, you know, save them from themselves, because they don't know any better. And they'll look at you like, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just a worrywart. My daughter says I'm recovery Randy. So, well, it's what saved my life. I'm breaking generational curses here. I got to show my family what healthy is, because I'm the one that caused unhealthy. So now I got to go back and, you know, do some footwork. And it's not easy. And without recovery, without my army and my sober support and my team that I can depend on, just tell me, like, Stephanie, you're doing right. Don't feel bad. And I was like, what do you mean? How does something so right feel so wrong? And they said, because you've never did it. And I was like, oh man, okay. I don't ever want to hand my kids a shovel. I lost my son almost 7 years ago, heroin overdose. And I refuse to lose anymore.
I think the biggest thing that I take away from our conversations, and really the take home in my heart, is that our kids are vulnerable here and everywhere. And I want to talk very specifically before we go about some of the websites that we should be watching. But before we go to the tech route again, I know, Chief, you and I talked a little bit about, and you were really insightful, and just as parents and community members, being aware of where our kids go, where they don't go. You mentioned even as we grow as a community, the new Target complex that happens here. Can we just talk a little bit about that growth and proximity and what it means to us and our kids?
Yeah, the one of the things that kind of tail on to what you were saying is that a lot of times what you hear is, well, I want to respect my child's privacy, and I want to, you know, treat them basically older than they really are. And by respecting their privacy, not getting into their phones, not finding out what they're doing, if they've been gone for an extended period of time, and not questioning them about that or knowing what they're doing, they're not equipped to handle the threats that are out there now, because the threats can reach them where 20 years ago it was a lot harder to do that. So by respecting their privacy, by giving them their space, you're giving the predators free reign to do whatever they want. They don't have the capability of realizing that they're being groomed, that they're potentially going to be a victim of a crime. You know, as Franklin County, we had to change the way we prosecute pandering and in pornography, because there's so many juveniles involved who don't really have the mental state to really realize they're committing a felony. And we've had to change the way we prosecute that, because there's so many kids involved in it now. And so I encourage you to know what they're doing. If they've been gone for a period of time, if they're changing their behavior, they seem withdrawn or submissive, and find out what they're doing online, whether it be gaming or social media. Because by giving them their space and treating them as if they were adults, you're giving the predators a free rein to go after them.
Yeah, make sure that you learn what the apps are, because some of the apps are very deceiving. And so, what are you looking for? When you get in there, what are you going to find? You know what I mean? How do you find it? Because they're very, very good.
And also, you mentioned this previously, but don't trust the face, don't trust the voice. You know, the technology's there. You know, we've used it. You know, the technology is easily accessible to change that. And so you can't just, you know, you can't just trust that the person sounds like they're young or that they look like they're young, that this is the case. Again, whether it be the operations of the Human Trafficking Task Force or ICAC, I'm really surprised on how busy we are.
Right, along with, to your point about the tech, there is a list and it's in the digital folders that you received, and we'll send it out after as well, but it talks about and it shows you the links and describes these different websites. Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat are all on there. Yik Yak is one, Whisper, Blender, WhatsApp, KIK, #1 Chat Avenue. Those are just a listing. And it will describe to you how they're used and in what ways they're targeting the kids. There's also a lot of webcams. That's kind of a new thing as well. People wanting to have the video chat. There's one called Shark Roulette and Monkey and Omegle that are being used. So being aware of this, I know my kids, even at 10 and 7, are like, can I download this? And it looks normal, but knowing this now, I know how to do a little research and dig in to maybe in some cases, what's behind the app. And even this report talked about the Finstagram account. So the kids will create fake Instagram accounts so that they can access things and keep it private. And then, well, go ahead.
What about Talking Tom?
I didn't know about Talking Tom.
Talking Tom, that they can turn around and actually be watching your kid when we're changing their clothes. They can see if somebody's home or not, you know what I mean, who's there and everything. The predator knows how to get into and actually be the voice of the cat and the eyes.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I never knew that.
App.
Yeah, I know. My granddaughter had it. I don't know more.
Well, and then to something you said previously, what ends up happening, and this is where the kids get kind of hooked because they will do something and then they're like, oh gosh, I'm going to get in trouble for that. And then that's where the predator has them. If they fear that the parents will harm them or be angry with them, then that gives that predator power over them to say, well, you don't want your parents finding out, so go over to this app, and or if you don't do this, then I'm going to tell your parents, and they begin to believe that. So to your point, and Chief, you said it as well, having those open lines of communication and talking to them at any age, appropriately, obviously, but in a way that says, if something happens or you do something you shouldn't potentially do, know that they're a worse threat than me. So, you know, having those communication lines to talk so the kids can not be afraid to come to you.
Well, I think it's really important too that I was at, I'm not going to say what school, but there was a girl that came down and she showed me her phone, and she says, this guy tried to traffic me on Messenger, and I was like, oh wow. I said, what did you do? And she says, well, I told my dad, they shut it down. 3 of her other girlfriends came back to back to back. And she says, now he's on my line. Now he's on my line. And I was like, oh no, we need to have a discussion. We need to get together, put all of your information together, and we need to call the police and let them be able to make a sting and catch this guy before they go down the whole list and finally catch the most vulnerable one. So that's the way, I mean, I'm sorry, but I say it's like unprotected sex. If you take a chance on somebody you don't know on your phone and he ends up not being the good guy, you can delete him, you can block him, but that's your whole feed is now at risk. And the kids don't understand it.
Well, and in some cases you had said too, even the you know, girls or boys that are posting, my life sucks, my family's this, you know, I'm upset about this, I'm ugly, I'm this. whatever they're putting out there, these people are watching those histories and then they reach out and say, oh, but you're beautiful, or oh, you're great in sports, or they watch those. And I know how our kids post.
Yes.
It's years, they've got years of backlog data to connect with these kids, and they believe it, right? I mean, you and I would look at it and think that's obviously some weirdo, but these kids believe what they're being told, and then they have it. We talked about a lot of different topics, and the one thing I will say that a report recently I read said the single most important barrier to traffickers is educated parents. Would you agree that that's a big piece?
Absolutely.
So I think that's our job, is to educate ourselves and then to share that throughout the community.
Also, just there is tip card for parents that we put in the packet for people that are here, and there's stickers and cards for the National Human Trafficking Hotline. If you're not here, or if you want it at a later time, there'll be, we're leaving material here. We'll also have it in the lobby of the PE, but have a lot of great tips that they can have and take with them.
Thank you. Yes, we have those. We'll get them in some other languages as well. I guess I have a few more questions, but any questions that anyone would like to ask here before I go on? Any thoughts or questions, Dr. Rollins? Yeah, you can say it and I'll repeat it then.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say a comment. Number one, this was mesmerizing. It was superb. Your questions, Angela, were outstanding as an interviewer. I thought this was 60 minutes for a while. I'm serious. Wonderful. I'm a pediatrician, retired. But I just like to add one thing to all of this is that one of the best things we as parents can do, or grandparents, caregivers, is to eat dinner with our kids and to talk to them and put all this stuff away, to communicate, demonstrate resilience, have humor, and be preemptive, and not be afraid to discuss all this, amongst many other topics. And that way we can prevent a lot.
I'll repeat that just in case you couldn't hear, but I think Dr. Robbins shared he's a pediatrician, and the most important thing we could be doing with our kids is eating dinner with them, demonstrating resilience and humor, and don't be afraid to have these discussions. Thank you. I think that's absolutely right. I guess, what other tools do the kids need in their tool belts? What can we arm them and equip them with?
Well, there's, red flags are really important. Little indicators, of different things of, if they're over their friend's house and they see motel room keys and a lot of drug paraphernalias are what's going on in these houses of, the friends. What I forgot to turn on and say, you got to watch who's new in the crowd and who's moving new into the neighborhood. I try to tell the kids that trust is something that is earned. It's not just given. And so a lot of times you'll have traffickers will recruit other females or males, whatever goes into the group, and will actually in time slowly entice and lure our kids. With the glitter, the gold, the new phones, the Hollisters, all the good stuff. And you think that they're going over spending the night with these, and they're going over and they're boosting and showing them into that life. So you have to pay attention, with the way they start changing, how they dress, you know what I mean? And being fashionable. Yeah, it's okay. It wasn't your birthday. Why are you wearing $300 pair of jeans? And, or why is your phone better than mine? and I got a really expensive one, So just different things. It just pops out of their friends. Like, wow, their phone is better than mine. What are they doing? What's their family doing? Investigate.
You know, just don't say Aunt Sally's out for a vacation and everybody's having a slumber party when in fact, Aunt Sally, you know, no, she's actually home and they're going somewhere else. You've got to really, I mean, kids are so smart. And I'm telling you, you got to be on them. You got to know what you know, because I mean, I've believed a lot of stuff, and I'm like, and I've been out there, and I'm like, wow, that was good. But I had to put that in my tool belt. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's not easy talking about the hard stuff, but you start seeing it, and we know we have intuition. Don't shove it underneath the rug and say, well, this is just me. No, talk about it. Talk about it and make it okay. Don't make it dirty. Don't make it bad. Just like, this is awareness. This is what you're going to need as you grow into a man, as you grow into a woman. I want you to save your life. I want you to save my life, your sister's life, your brother's life, whoever. These are things that we need, and it's a part of growing up. And if you don't have it and you don't show me that you can handle it in an appropriate way, then you're not going to get it. No matter how crazy they are, just make sure you get them on mental meds or whatever you got to do. ADHD, if that's what they're bouncing off walls, do what you need to do. Take that extra step. Find out what's going on with the kids. And then take a look at your life. What are you representing? What are you showing them that it's okay? What's going on in your life? Because I've seen a lot in my mom's life that I thought was okay and it wasn't. And if you're a single parent, pay attention to the handyman that you just let in your house. And you just think that he's the greatest thing since peanut butter. And now he's babysitting your kids.
Yeah, another one is prepaid credit cards. You know, if your 14-year-old has a prepaid credit card, says they got it from a friend or whatever, I mean, just use your gut. There's no reason why they should have a prepaid phone, prepaid credit card, new clothes that you didn't get for them. You know, I think that we have to trust our gut when something's not right. Changes in personality, withdrawal, you know, those are all signs. I think that if you're listening today, if you've already taken a huge step, education is the key, is what we talked about. And if you're listening or here today, then that's a huge step right there that you're going to be aware of. We talked about the doctors and nurses, only 3% have been educated to look for some of these things. You know, here we have a group of people that have really done a good job. And then the other thing is that I think nationally the thing is, well, it doesn't happen here, it doesn't happen in my neighborhood, it's not going to happen to me. It does. And even the old school way before the internet and all that, you know, years ago we had a guy that was over at Market Street. If you know what Market Street looks like after school, typically, there's a lot of kids there. He was talking to kids at Market Street, wasn't saying anything that's illegal. The fact that you have a grown man talking to a middle school girl is that he doesn't know is obviously a red flag. Now that person passed away, so that's no longer, that particular person is not no longer an issue. But you know, there's just a sense of safety, and you know, we're glad that we're the safest community in Ohio. That's what they said. But really, it's not a police thing that's made it that way. It's the whole community. It's you know, a lot of times whether it be a car break-in or a suspicious person, whatever the case may be, is that if we were doing it by ourselves, we've got a few cruisers out there driving around, they're just not going to catch it. But what we have is a community that notifies us when things don't look right, what calls us when they should. Really, it's a big community effort, and the turnout for this topic, I think, is evident of that.
It takes the whole army. It takes everybody. We can't do it by ourselves.
But even Chief Youth mentioned something to me when we spoke earlier, just about being aware of kids that are unaccompanied and where do kids go unaccompanied. So watch for that.
Yeah, you know, the Market Street's a great example, but every community and many of them have a bigger draw than what we have. You know, there might be a movie theater, it might be you know, a restaurant or whatever, but they're a big draw. And I think that as a parent myself, you think that there's safety in numbers. There's adults that work there, there's adults that are around. But as I mentioned, this stuff is subtle. It happens under the radar, and it can happen right in front of another adult. They don't really even realize it. And so, you know, it's just important to, you know, just keep in mind and look out for your kids. It's just a different time that we live in. Many of the parents didn't have to deal with a lot of the threats that are coming through technology today, and you know, the fact that you're building your own awareness, and if you keep that going and pass that on to your children, you know, it helps insulate them from some of these really terrible predators that are out there.
I think that's really important to reiterate that just our kids are not equipped to handle the threats that are out there today. So we need to trust our gut. As parents and community members, we need to reach out for resources, keep those open lines of communications and the dinner tables to make sure that kids know they can come to us and say something has happened. I think that's great guidance for us. I also wanted just to list a few websites that will provide you information on how kids can connect safely and things to watch for. There's connectsafely.org, raisingchildren.net, cyberpatrol.com, familyconnect.com, and wadpadforchange.org. Now these are also listed in the take-home packet, so you'll have those as well. But amazing information, and I thought I was pretty educated on this stuff, and I quickly realized I wasn't. So I can't thank you both enough for your contribution and your insight today. Thank you. So these lunch and learns are intended to provide a forum to address key public health issues. We'll keep doing that. In fact, Chief and I had a really great conversation about what's next. What do we need to be talking about from his perspective? So those are coming up in May. We're going to be talking with amazing leader in the community, Jake from Save a Warrior. We'll be talking about first responders and veterans health. In June, we'll be talking about racism as a public health crisis. And then per Chief Jones' request, we're going to be talking about drugs in our kids, drugs being prescription and illegal drugs in the community. So stay tuned. We'll keep you updated on all of that information. If there's any other topics you would like to talk about, please let us know. We're all ears for that as well. And if you want to find out more information about how to take part in other programs that we offer here at Healthy New Albany, visit healthynewalbany.org. You can